Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into the eerie world of Stephen King's It from 1980. Get ready for some spine-chilling facts you probably didn't know. This ain't no board, James. We're talking full-on horror here. We're going to be floating down into the sewers of Derry, Maine to uncover the secrets behind this iconic miniseries. From casting choices to special effects, we'll be dissecting everything that made this adaptation so damn terrifying. So grab your silver slugs, keep the lights on, and let's get started. Alright, so before we get to the blood and guts, let's talk about how this whole shebang came to be. It, as you horror hounds already know, is based on Stephen King's monster of a novel, published back in 1986. Now, the 1980 miniseries wasn't the first attempt to adapt the book, but it was the one that really sunk its teeth into pop culture. See, King's novel was a beast itself, clocking in at over 1,000 pages. They managed to condense that behemoth into a tight two-part miniseries, and let me tell you, they didn't skimp on the scares. It was a dark time for television, but this thing crawled out of the static and grabbed everyone by the throat. The miniseries was a joint venture between ABC and a few other brave souls who dared to bring Pennywise the dancing clown to life. And let me tell you, this wasn't some goofy birthday party clown. Tim Curry, man, he turned Pennywise into the stuff of nightmares. I mean, just picture it. A time before CGI, when practical effects ruled the roost. They had to get creative to bring Pennywise to life, and boy, did they ever. But we'll get to that later. The point is, It from 1980 wasn't just some throwaway adaptation. It was a perfect storm of storytelling, acting, and yeah, even those cheesy 80s special effects that somehow made it even creepier. Now let's talk about the actors who brought these characters to life, because let's be honest, half the reason this miniseries is so good is because of the casting. First off, you got Tim Curry as Pennywise. I mean, come on, the guy's a legend. He could have phoned it in, you know, just done the whole creepy clown thing in his sleep. But Curry, he brought something special to Pennywise. He made him funny, he made him scary, and he made him unforgettable. You believe me? But it wasn't just Curry. The casting director deserves a medal for finding the perfect actors to play the Losers Club. These kids, they weren't just reading lines, they those characters. You had Seth Green, fresh off playing an alien in Invasion of the Bunny Snatchers. I'm kidding, that's not a real movie, or is it? Anyway, you had Jonathan Brandis, Emily Perkins, the whole gang. They had this real chemistry, this bond that made you believe they were childhood friends who were facing down their fears together, and that's what made the whole thing so damn effective. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say the giant spider clown in the sewer. Yeah, I'm talking about the differences between the book and the miniseries. Look, anytime you adapt a book as dense and complex as It, you've got to make some changes. Some things just don't translate well to the screen, you know, like remember that whole ritual of Chud in the book? Yeah, that would have been a little tough to pull off on a TV budget in 1980. But you know what, even with the changes, the miniseries still captures the essence of King's story. It's about the power of fear, the bonds of friendship, and the horrors that lurk beneath the surface of small-town America. They had to streamline some things, combine some characters, but for the most part, they stayed true to the spirit of the book, and sometimes that's all you can ask for. Plus, let's be honest, some of the changes they made actually improved on the story. All right, let's talk about the good stuff, the special effects. Now, I know what you're thinking. James, this is 1980 we're talking about. Weren't the special effects like totally bogus? And yeah, sure, by today's standards, some of the effects in It might seem a little cheesy. But you know what? That's what makes them so charming. We're talking about a time when practical effects were king. No CGI, no fancy computers, just good old-fashioned ingenuity and a whole lot of fake blood. Like, remember when Pennywise is in the sewer and he's like, "Hiya, Georgie," and then he bites Georgie's arm off? Okay, so maybe the blood looks a little bit like ketchup, but still, it was effective. And then there's the scene where the werewolf pops out of the book. Now, the werewolf itself might look like a guy in a cheap Halloween costume, but the way they did the transformation, with the book morphing and changing, that was pretty damn cool for its time. And let's not forget about Pennywise's final form. It's a giant spider, right? And again, it might not hold up to today's CGI standards, but there's something about that big clunky rubber spider that's just so unsettling. So, how did people react to It when it first came out? Well, let me tell you, it was a bona fide hit. I mean, this was back in the day when you couldn't just binge watch a whole season of a show in one sitting. You had to wait like a whole week between episodes. Can you imagine the anticipation, the dread building up as you waited to see what Pennywise would do next? It was water cooler talk, let me tell you. Critics were generally positive, praising the performances, particularly Tim Curry's Pennywise, which, let's face it, is no surprise. The guy's a legend. And even Stephen King himself was a fan of the adaptation. He even said that watching Tim Curry's performance was like seeing the character come to life. That's high praise coming from the master of horror himself. Of course, not everyone was a fan. Some people thought it was too scary, too intense, especially for a TV movie. But hey, you can't please everyone, can you? And besides, isn't the point of a horror movie to, scare people? All right, now it's time to delve into some behind-the-scenes secrets, the kind of stuff that true horror fans like you and me eat up like candy corn on Halloween. First off, let's talk about Tim Curry. Now, legend has it that Curry stayed in character as Pennywise even when the cameras weren't rolling. He'd creep around the set whispering to himself, freaking out the cast and crew. I mean, can you imagine? You're just trying to eat your lunch. And suddenly Pennywise, the dancing clown, pops up and asks if you want a balloon. Talk about a recipe for indigestion. And speaking of Pennywise, did you know that Curry's costume was actually designed by the man himself? Yeah, he had a very specific vision for what he wanted Pennywise to look like. And he worked closely with the costume designer to bring that vision to life. And let me tell you, it worked. That costume is iconic, man. It's instantly recognizable, and it's still terrifying to this day. Chapter 7, A Legacy of Laughter and Fear, the Impact of It. There's no denying that It, from 1980, left its mark on the horror genre. I mean, think about it, the creepy clown, the small town with a dark secret, the group of outcast kids facing their fears. These are all tropes that have become staples of horror, and It did them first, or at least popularized them for a whole generation. The miniseries also helped to solidify Stephen King's status as a master of horror. I mean, the guy was already a best-selling author, but it proved that his stories could translate to the screen just as effectively as they did on the page. And of course, let's not forget about the impact on the cultural consciousness. It gave a whole generation a fear of clowns, sewers, and creepy old houses. I mean, I still can't look at a storm drain without thinking of Pennywise lurking down there, waiting to snatch me up. But beyond the scares, it also taught us about the importance of facing our fears, the power of friendship, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And that's what makes it more than just a horror movie. It's a story that stays with you long after the credits have rolled. Now, you might be surprised to learn that It didn't exactly clean up at the awards shows. I mean, sure, it was a critical and commercial success, but it was still a TV movie, and back then TV movies weren't exactly considered high art. But you know what? Awards are just shiny trinkets anyway. The real prize is the impact that It had on audiences, the way it terrified and entertained us in equal measure. That being said, It did receive a few nominations here and there. The editing was particularly praised, which is no small feat considering the complex structure of the story. And of course, Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise was singled out for praise, as it should have been. The guy deserved an Emmy at least. But hey, sometimes the greatest rewards are the ones that don't come with a trophy. Even today, decades after it first aired, It continues to cast a long shadow over popular culture. The image of Pennywise the dancing clown is instantly recognizable, and it's been parodied and referenced countless times in movies, TV shows, and even video games. And of course, there was the 2017 remake, which, while a decent horror movie in its own right, could never quite capture the magic of the original. But hey, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? The fact that It is still being remade and reimagined all these years later is a testament to its enduring power. It's a story that continues to resonate with audiences, young and old, and it's likely to continue to do so for generations to come. So why does It continue to endure? Why does it still have the power to scare us all these years later? I think it's because it taps into something primal, something deep within our collective unconscious. All right, before we wrap things up, let's have some fun with a few little-known facts about it. Did you know that the sewer set was actually built on a soundstage and was so realistic that it often smelled terrible? I guess you could say it was a real sewer. And get this, Tim Curry's Pennywise laugh was entirely improvised. He just started laughing like that during rehearsals, and the director liked it so much that they kept it in the movie. And here's one more for you. Remember that scene where the losers are all swimming in the lake? Well, that lake was actually a man-made pond, and it was freezing cold. The actors had to wear wetsuits under their clothes to stay warm. So there you have it, a few fun facts about one of the scariest movies ever made. It just goes to show that sometimes the most terrifying things are the ones that are right under our noses. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these facts about It from 1980, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spooky content. See you in the next video. We've gone deep into the sewers of Derry and back, but remember, the true horrors often lurk closer than you think. Keep your eyes peeled for the unusual, the unsettling, and always check behind you in the dark. You never know when Pennywise might be lurking nearby, ready to offer you a balloon or worse. Until next time, stay spooky.